Round 2 of the finals of the Heavy Hitters Clash Bash season has officially started. You are watching that video right now. So if you guys are enjoying this content, please make sure to like the channel. Go ahead and subscribe as well. You can also check out the rest of the games during the Heavy Hitters Clash Bash season over on the FaB Clash Hub. I'll have the link to that in the description down below. Or if you just want to see my own games, I do have them listed here in the channel area, so there should be a playlist hopefully at some point that you guys can check out. So if you wanted to check that out, feel free. I give my commentary on all my games that I do throughout the Clash Bash season, and I certainly hope that it brings some insight into this format for you. But again, I have myself on Dromai, my opponent is on Azalea. Let's go ahead and see how Game 2 works out. Will Rotu take it home and 2-0 me in the finals, or will I be able to have a redemption match against my opponent? Let's check it out. Alrighty, here we are in Game 2. It is myself going against the wonderful Azalea. Now, for those of you who play Classic Constructed, you know this game is kind of in my favor. Luckily, Azaleas kind of like to just pump up one arrow and then not worry about any of the dragons. Normally, there's not a lot of go again outside of maybe a Ravenous Rabble. And so my whole point is to be as aggressive as I possibly can. They're probably not going to be running any kind of poppers in the deck, simply because the only arrow that really has a popper value, I believe, is Battering Bolt, and that's not allowed in here. So unless they're running poppers outside of their arrows, you're probably going to get some pretty good times in here with dragons. And that's kind of my whole purpose. I want to make sure that I'm able to flood the board with dragons and go from there. So our opponent's then going to go ahead and just start us off. They are going to Death Dealer, get themselves some stuff here. I'm just going to continue to make sure to want to defend. I'm going to try to still be as aggressive as possible, but again, I do want to defend. I want to make sure that I'm able to power through these turns and really be able to flood my board with these dragons. Now, my opponent running the Ragamuffin's Hat, very interesting. Obviously, you have to kind of be able to look at the top card or have the top card of your deck be an arrow for you to give it dominate. So Ragamuffin's Hat was a great way to do it. It's popped on turn 0, and now they're going to be able to go ahead and come in with a wonderful 0 for 11 after being pumped several times by other action cards. You've got that the wonderful Lace of Inertia added in there too, and I can only block with one card. So this is definitely an awful turn 1, turn 2 sit into, simply because coming in with all this damage and having an inertia, it's not going to help my game plan. Again, I want to be a little bit more aggressive against Azalea, but dominate is just something I can't really do a whole lot of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just block with my plate, and then I'm going to block with the Dust Up. Block for 5. There's no real on-hit outside of the inertia token, but I don't really care too much about inertia tokens. It's not the end of the world for me. What I'm going to do here then is take advantage of the fact that my opponent more than likely does not have any kind of popper, and I'm going to see whether or not I want to go ahead and make some dragons, or if I want to go ahead and maybe make some, Phantasm go against. If I'm trying to push damage, that's kind of the goal there. So I play Doombreaker. I have 2 blues in my hand, which is kind of unfortunate, but I do end up pitching the blue, so I don't need to don't worry about the ash. And then I'm going to go ahead and play Azalea. In this situation, I probably should have played the Embermaw Centipie, simply because presenting 11 damage is exactly what they did to me, and I could come back for that exact same amount. Instead, now I just have a dragon on the board, which is a great start to where I want to be, but it's not exactly the game plan here. I do have the 2 float because technically Azalea does only cost 0. So now I have no ash, but I was able to present more than 11. I now presented 14 because of the 1 arcane. So came in with a lot here for off of blue, but I am out of ash. Not a very great place to be in. I still have my Glory Seeker up in case I need to make ash. I also have my Silken Form and Mage Master's boots in case I need to make ash, but it's not looking super great. they go ahead and knock the Death Whistle. They get that red in the ledger in there. That is going to be pretty detrimental to my game plan. I do kind of end up playing Ninja a little bit when I am more of the aggressor in the situation. So red in the ledger certainly does not help. But what I can do here is simply just block out some stuff. I only have one dragon, so I'm not really that worried about trying to do a whole bunch of stuff. I can make more dragons, theoretically, but right now I'm trying to figure out how I want to be able to get more ash. I don't have any ash out, so I can't use Invoke Yendurai. But what I'm going to do is then just go ahead and pitch the Yendurai to this Oasis Respite. Blocks out a decent amount of it, not enough for me to not get red in the ledger, but I do have access to ash now. And of course, if my turn is simply just attack with Azalea, then I'm fine. But I'm going to go ahead and pitch this one here to Glory Seeker. Don't really get anything good on my end, but it is a better card to Arsenal than Sweeping Bow Blue. So we are going to go ahead and be able to attack still, come in for 2, and they go ahead and just block 3, so they block out some of that damage, and then I get to just Arsenal this Mirror Guy. Now, if this is a red in the ledger, we're kind of in a mess, right? We do have the Ash to do something here, but they're probably going to pump pretty heavy. That seems to be their game plan, is just get 2 pumps into a dominated arrow, and without Ragamuffins, you can't really make that play anymore, but they do end up getting the Ravenous Rabble. So Ravenous Rabble goes ahead and comes in. You have the Read the Glide Path revealed from the top, so we're not getting any kind of additional stuff off the top. No crazy dominated things, because that was a Ravenous on top. They blind Azalea into a Ravenous. So this is just 6. I don't really need to take much here. In this situation, I actually am pretty comfortable just blocking a little bit. Withering Shot doesn't hurt me a lot, but the lower I am in life, the worse this becomes, because if dominated arrows are able to come in and I don't have the proper defense, I am going to take enough damage for me to die. So being able to go ahead and block efficiently here, I don't have a D-React in Arsenal, so I really need to make sure I'm able to do it the most I can, which is where turns like this come in. So I'm able to go ahead and play out some stuff, go ahead and actually make some good plays and get more stuff onto the board. I'm wondering whether or not I Ravenous or Dune, but I am just going to invoke Mirror Guy first. Again, I'm not worried about poppers too much, so my plan is just to kind of swing with as much as I can here. I'm going to swing with that, and then I'm going to go ahead and just swing in with... I'm curious if I wanted to play the Rabble. I do want to keep an Arsenal, so it's a smart move to Rabble. I know I'm going to get a 4. Now my opponent's at 2 and I'm at 10. I ran into 2 D-Reacts in my hand. Not a great place for the D-Reacts to be, but they are in my hand, and that is just kind of what it is. But unfortunately, we're going to have to see whether or not we get a dominated arrow onto us. They did get to read the glide path, so they do know what is on top of their deck. If it is a red arrow of any kind and they have enough pumps, they could very well make this well over 14 damage, more than likely, and that will end up ruining us, because if we can only block 4 out of a 14 attack, then we do not end up getting the win here. So it's a blue infecting shot coming in. This is, of course, something that can very well get Snapdragon Scalered. So we do have to be careful, because this just means that they could load another arrow, shoot it, or load another arrow, Azalea, pop it, so on and so forth. It's a lot coming into it. So depending on blocks, I do have 2 D-Reacts, so I want to use them efficiently. I want to be able to block absolutely as much as I can here. This 2 block of Rake the Embers is not a bad call. If I 2 block into a Sink Below or 2 block into a Fate Foreseen, it does block it totally. But of course, that means then that my opponent gets to come in with whatever. If it does end up being a dominated arrow after this, it is kind of a feels bad. But no Snapdragon Scalers and attack reactions. I am just going to sink that there. I do get an Invoke Thamai, which is just not super great. But they did forget 2 Snapdragons, so I gave them the undo, and they get the Snapdragon off. So they are going to go ahead and be able to do that. And now they're going to Death Dealer, get another arrow, and then they're going to go ahead and pump it, and it's going to come in again for and in like 8. This is crazy. So I can only block 7 here. And then I can attack with Miragai, theoretically, right? So taking 1, getting a Blood Rot, and then attacking with Miragai is still technically lethal on my end, which I'm not too worried about. Again, this is one of those situations where if you're ignoring the dragons, you're not going to do too fantastic there. But I do want to keep the 1 red in hand simply because I do end up wanting to play it. I have 2 Blood Rot Pox, and it's not enough to kill me, but I do want to make sure that I'm able to present enough damage to where I can end a game. Now, 5 is a lot. You obviously have to block with 2 cards here. I also have my Silken form up, so I can turn that Ash into an Ashwing, and I still have Miragai. So attacking with Miragai here, being able to just strip every card from their hand is kind of what I want. I don't want them to have pumps anymore. Now it's 2-2. Now what do we do here, right? I pulled a Sigil of Solace and an Oasis Respite. Could not have played it better, honestly. Could not have played it better. Absolutely wonderful. They go ahead, they Azalea, they get a Spire Sniping. They don't have anything to do with the Crow's Nest. They play the Spire Sniping. It's a simple 3 block. And there's nothing else left. It's 3 dominate. It's what they have to do, and I totally understand. At this point here, I'm just like, well, I could probably just play the Sigil of Solace and keep my whole hand and just do nasty things. So I'm going to play Sigil. Effectively knocks it out. There's no on-hit with Spire Sniping, so I'm not worried. And then I just get to do the thing that all Rangers hate, which is make 3 very small, annoying dragons. So Miragai gets to come in for 2. They're going to have to block it. And at this point, I get to keep Oasis Respite in my arsenal if I need it. But now they're going to block that out. They get 1 more attack. They're going to go ahead and block that out. And then they only have 1 card left in hand. This is called gaining the tempo. You're able to now go ahead and just sit here and go, well, I could turn this other Silken form into a dragon, but I don't do that. No need to get greedy. You're in the finals. You got to figure it out. And now here we are. We have such a stacked hand because now I can go ahead and Kyloria, Miragai, and Dromai. So we get a double block here. Miragai then gets to come in. They're not going to have enough cards to block all of these dragons. And so all I need to do is 1 damage to my opponent. They're not going to have a blocker. And I get to go ahead and take game 2 in the finals. And that was game 2. It was super, super close. Dominate is not anything to be trifled with when you are only at 20 life. In Dominate in Classic Constructed, you see it a lot, and it's very, here nor there. Sometimes you're okay taking 9, and it's totally fine and fair, but not when you're at 10. If you're at 10, you take 9, you lose next turn if they're able to dominate nearly anything that you can't block. So having to make those choices on when to block and when not to block, when to full block something or when to save it, I kind of had the feeling that my opponent was trying to go very, very wide with that turn where they, Snapdragon Scalar, because they were able to, get some additional information off of that. But even still, I think the turn in which they had to come in with a Dominate 3 Spire Sniping Blue, that was an easy time for me because whether or not I played, or whether or not I blocked with 1 card or I had the Sigil of Solace, I still had a turn, right? My turn was still there. I was still able to pop off and do the things that I wanted to do. And the more dragons I have on board, the harder it is for Azalea to deal with all that. They did not have the red in the ledger at the time, nor a dominated red in the ledger at that. And I ended up being able to come in with a whole bunch there. So that is the end of game 2. So if you guys enjoyed this, again, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy all of this wonderful Clash Bash content. You can see my own games in the Heavy Hitters Clash Bash season here. There's a playlist somewhere that I'll probably put in the description, or I'll put up over here somewhere, and you guys can go ahead and check that out for my games in the Clash Bash for the Heavy Hitter season. But if you wanted to check out everyone's games in the Clash Bash, please make sure to go ahead and go over to the FaB Clash Hub that is in the description down below. That's where you're going to find a lot more games and certainly a lot more matchups outside of Dromai and Ira, my two heroes that I'm taking into the top 8. So let's go ahead. We're going to move on into Game 3 in our next video. So stay tuned for that. Again, subscribe if you want to see that finals, the final match of the heavy hitters season of the Clash Bash. And make sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about this finals so far. Who are you guys rooting for? I've got myself, obviously. You don't need to be biased. Ro is a very, very wonderful opponent and certainly a very, very great deck builder, no matter what format they're in. So excited to see what Game 3 looks like, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you wanted to become a channel member, you certainly can. We do have channel member access to those who wish it. There are channel member only videos available for you all, talking about some market stuff and some personal things as well in my own life if you wanted to connect a little bit more with me. But you do also get access to a loyalty badge for when I'm live, as well as emotes, and you get to flex those on people when I'm live. You get to flex those in the chat. You just throw up a whole bunch of emotes and it'll be super cool. But anyway, not necessary. You can totally go ahead and just subscribe to the channel. That is more than enough. So thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate your support, and I hope you continue to have fun in the flesh and blood. And I will see you all in our next episode, the final match, or should I say the final game of the Heavy Hitters Clash Bash season. We'll see you then. Nerd out.